So welcome to the Lovefly Podcast. Today we're joined by Nick. Nick has got a fantastic story, and he's been flying that particular beast that you can see behind him for a very long time. And I'm dying to hear all about this. So welcome, Nick.
Thank you very much indeed, Paul. It's great to be here tonight. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh no, it's our absolute pleasure. We want to promote your books, and you've got all sorts of stuff out there that people we would like to dive into. But tell us a little bit about yourself and your background to get us started.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I think a little bit like everybody in the aviation industry, when COVID hit, for the first time since I was 16, I had time to reflect on a career that at that time had lasted nearly 50 years. So they grounded the airplane that I flew longer than anybody else. It's a 747. And it never flew again. It's the second time in my career that I've been grounded. The first was in 9/11, of course. I landed back at Heathrow, and I basically had to give them the ignition keys, and they took it away. So I was grounded for that. And then the second time was COVID, and they grounded the poor old jumbos, and they were taken away to the scrap yards. And what happened with me, I was contacted by a journalist. I was sitting at home, and they just wanted a confirmation when I started to fly the jumbo. And I gave them the date, which was in 1987. And he said, "Can you just confirm that you've flown nothing else since then?" That's right. He goes, "Okay, well, you are officially the most experienced 747 pilot in the world." And they've been doing 2 years of digging around trying to find out.
And you didn't know?
No, not a clue. No, it just didn't occur. I flew the airplane and I just loved it. And I thought I was flying anything else. Being particularly lazy, I didn't want to do another course. So I just stayed on the jumbo. So it just got me thinking that, gosh, I've flown this airplane for all of, it's such a long time. And maybe I should put it pen to paper. And the other thing is that I was one of these rare breed of pilots called a self-improver. And self-improver basically means you do it yourself. And very much a derogatory term. When I first joined British Airways, there were some still very, they were called the Atlantic Barons, and very old sort of captains. And they were used to pilots in the forces or going to an approved training course.
Yeah. And
suddenly there was this guy who basically cleaned airplanes to get flying hours to eventually get his license. And it was I was very much looked down upon. I wasn't unique by any means, there were a few of us, but we were unusual in those days. So I just thought to myself, well, you can't do that these days. You cannot become a self-improver. You have to now get sort of approved training course. So I thought, why not write a book about it? And nearly 4 books later, here I am.
Oh, we'll have to give us the names of those so that people can look them up.
Well, so the first one. Yeah, sorry.
But I was saying, you basically paid your own way to get your hours. How long did that take you?
Quite a long time. The first book is called The Self-Improver. And it just describes how I left university with no qualifications, nothing. I just decided, I was sitting there one afternoon and I was writing a philosophy exam. And I hadn't been to any lectures for the first year. And I hadn't realized I had to sit in the exam. So I was sitting there and I did a little bit of research on Descartes and all these people. Of course, I was totally underprepared.
Yes.
And they gave me a paper and I looked at it and I thought, no, 3-hour exam. And there was one question. It said, is this a question? And I looked over at both sides and I thought, they've only given me the first page of this exam. So I put my hand on and this lady came across and very stern lady and said, yes. I said, can I have the rest of the exam, please? Because that is the exam. And I looked at it, is this a question? So I sort of put my head in my hands, thought, I don't know nothing about this. Yeah. And I looked, literally did happen. I looked out the window and across the Essex countryside, I saw this airplane painting a beautiful picture flying across the sky. And I thought, I looked up, I looked at my paper, I looked at the sky and I thought, no. And I wrote, this is a question, this is the answer. And I put my pen down and I walked out of academia.
That's a great story.
And I headed off to self-fund my own training.
And was that the first time you thought about being a pilot?
Well, I come from a very a strong aviation background. 2 of my uncles, well, my father and my 2 uncles were RAF. And my brother desperately wanted to fly. Well, I was always a rebel. I always wanted to do what my parents didn't want me to do. I had a flying lesson in 1974 and I really didn't enjoy it at all. So after an hour's flying, I thought, no, I don't like this. And then I went and did other things, went to university. But I did a 2-week trip with my father, who worked for British Caledonia, down to South America. And I had a very good time. And I thought, oh, maybe I could do this after all. Well, by that time, I'd burnt all my bridges. My father wasn't going to help me because 3 years earlier, I didn't show the enthusiasm or the aptitude to become a pilot. So I thought to myself, well, if nobody else is going to train me, I'll have to do it myself. I was also very short-sighted. I failed my medical. I went there and I was wearing contact lenses at the time. At that time, the Civil Aviation Authority didn't allow pilots wearing contact lenses. Well, not with my prescription. So I failed my first medical and was sent away. And eventually this wonderful, wonderful chap called Peter Chapman, who was a BCAL, British Caledonia doctor, got hold of me and we had a chat, and they actually changed the rules for me. My eyesight was not up to standard. Even now, if I went for medical, because I've got an exemption, it wouldn't give me a pilot's license. So that was just one of the things. And I went and cleaned airplanes. I ended up at Gatwick loading airplanes 7 days a week. I was doing 12-hour shifts, 7 day a week to get the hours or to get the money to go. I went to America. So yeah, it was really hard work. Lots of exciting stories, lots of things that I did that maybe I shouldn't have done because I was literally by myself and I had very little formal training. Chasing trains up the Sonoma Valley just outside San Francisco, getting lost in the mountains, all the things that pilots probably shouldn't do. My goodness, I had a lot of fun doing.
Yes. So you said at the beginning you might not be an orthodox kind of interview. I mean, you're kind of that's not quite your word, but I'm paraphrasing. So we get a sense here of the man behind it. So it's interesting, isn't it? So there's something about the piloting that caught your interest enough to persevere with all of that you had to go through.
Yes, yeah. It's say that when it sparked my interest going down to Rio with my father on 707, and I just got talking to the co-pilot and flight engineer, and it just sparked this interest. I thought maybe I could do this because say my got such a strong aviation background and fans. I thought, no, I can. I want to do this. So I just made the decision that I'm going to get to this. I couldn't think of anything else to do. Obviously, philosophy and I were not going to be.
No, exactly.
So academia was not the way forward. So it took a long time, but I eventually got my license after quite about 2 years. Well, by that time, that was in the late 70s, early 80s. It was late 70s. There was a recession. 1974, the miners' strike.
Yeah.
So literally nobody was recruiting. So there's no chance of me getting a job. So I thought, well, if I can't get a job, I might as well do my job. So I managed to start up this little company. And we ended up flying a little executive aircraft around. And that grew over the years. We started off with an 8-seater propeller airplane. And we eventually ended up with it, flying U2 all over Europe. So I employed myself. There's nobody else who's going to give me short-sighted pilot with no formal training or job. So it was literally a DIY career.
That's impressive. So you are a proper self-improver. So how did you go from that then into British Airways? How did that all come about?
Right. Well, I was we were flying the HS-125, which is an executive jet, and this now was 1986, I think it was, end of 86. And I was just having a great time flying U2 around Europe. And then I just thought to myself, well, maybe I should start growing up because I was a big fish in a very small pool. Yeah. I was the chief training pilot. I ran the whole business myself. And then in 87, the airline started to open up again to pilots. So I had no idea how, but British Airways decided to give me an interview. So I thought long and hard about it. I was due to get married into that year. And I knew that executive aviation is very temperamental. It's very difficult to predict. And I thought, well, maybe I should grow up a little bit and go into the airlines. So I decided to do that. I applied to British Airways, not for the moment, so anything they'd accept me. They posted a letter to me for the interview. I had a golden retriever called Roffy. And Roffy had got to the letterbox before myself, and he chewed up the letter. And this is quite a famous dog. This is a dog who'd appeared on the front of Gatwick News.
Right.
Because I was taxiing to get in, and my dog loved to sit in the pilot seat with the headphones on. And I could actually duck down, taxi the airplane. And so the guy with the lollipops, all he could see was a golden retriever with headsets on, taxiing in. So he took a photograph. It appeared on the Gatwick News. So I got called in to the CAA and said, "Can you explain this, please?" And the guy said to me, "Does your dog have an ID? Does your dog have a pilot's license?" Actually, no, he doesn't. And this wonderful guy said, "Well, Nick, here's your dog's flying license. Here's his ID. Make sure he wears them next time he flies." So that was my sort of, I thought, now I should go up with it. So BA sent me this letter, and Roffy chewed it up. I don't think Roffy wanted me to go flying.
No.
I had to sellotape this letter back together again. And I took it for the interview. We're all lining up. Everybody was opening the letters and putting it down on the desk. And I took out this soggy mess with sellotape all over it. I put it down. This one looked at me. And I just thought, so I showed her a picture of my dog. She said, "Oh, I love dogs." She said, "You chewed my letter up." So I managed to get through. I have no idea how they managed to take a longer-haired pilot who just smiled all the time. I love my job. I love flying.
Yeah. So you go straight onto the 747, or was it obviously throwing family? Yeah, straight onto the... Wow.
That's all I was going to go into. I wasn't interested in doing anything else. And, they eventually offered me 737. I said, "No, I do say in an interview I only want a 747. And they said, "Well, are you telling British Airways down?" I said, "Yeah, I am." And they said, "Well, nobody's ever done that." I said, "Well, I did say it. I didn't want 737. I'm flying something very similar to that now." So the chief pilot rang me back from British Airways and said, "This is true, you're turning us down." "Well, you did say 747. He said, "Well, I'll check." And came back, it was gold about an hour later. I said, "We did say that, didn't we?" He said, "Yeah, all right, you can start next week on 747. So happy days. That's how it all started.
Wow. That's a great story.
It's looking back at it now, I can't believe I did. I just, a lot of my career was tongue in cheek. I sort of pinched myself every time I got into a jumper. I can say, "Let me fly this."
What was it about 747 that you particularly loved then? Well, I suppose I'm thinking it's probably the biggest at the time, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, certainly the 380 was bigger. It's just a great aeroplane. It flies so beautifully. And it's one of these airplanes that you don't worry about anything. There's so much redundancy. There's so many engines on it, so many systems. I actually flew a 747 back from Singapore. Going into Singapore, we lost an engine. So we landed in Singapore. Next day, British Airways said, "Can you bring it back?" I said, "Well, no, one of the engines isn't working." He said, "Well, bring it back without that." So we flew there, obviously no passengers, no cabin crew. So we did a 3-engine ferry from Singapore to Dubai to London. No other airplane can do that. It's that reliable. You can actually take off in 3 engines. You can ferry in 3 engines and do a 3-engine landing. So it's got so much redundancy. If you have an engine failure on something like a 777 twin-engine airplane, it's an emergency, obviously. On a jumbo, you just put the newspaper down, have a think about it, decide if you're going to carry on. You normally do, you just carry on. Yeah. So it was just a great airplane.
So you must have seen it change quite a bit over that time, for 87.
I flew the 100 series, which was underpowered, noisy. And then the 200, which had the Rolls-Royce engines, which was a lovely airplane. And we had the lovely flight engineers. And they were I'm sure we did the same. They were just cool. I think it was a perfect way to fly an airplane. Is that you had the captain who managed it, you had the co-pilot. So, well, say to the co-pilot, "Yeah, Fred, you fly the airplane. You say to the engineer, you sort out the problem, and I'll manage." And it was the ideal way. So even when I went into the 400, of course, the flight engineer was replaced by lots of computer screens. And in the simulator, when things went wrong, I still looked around, try and talk to the engineer. It wasn't there. I had to do it myself. And then the 400.
So let me just ask, because that was interesting, when the flight engineers went, What was that like for pilots when you've been used to having somebody there?
It's a very good question. Some pilots, they didn't mind at all. I did. I really, really missed the flight engineer. They had far more in-depth knowledge than most pilots. I always thought to myself, knowledge is power, and the more you know, the better decisions you can make. So I think I did probably more digging into the manuals than a lot of pilots. And I used to talk to the flight engineers, get their experience, because I think that stood me in good stead when they left. So yeah, it was very difficult. I did the very last flight on the Classic. We were in Bombay with 9/11. We were sitting in upstairs in a bar, and we were sitting next to a group of Americans, and behind me there was a big screen, and it was 9/11 being shown live. And the Americans just started shouting at the television because their company was based in the Twin Towers. And I thought it was a film. It just
I know. I remember watching it. It did seem like a film, didn't it?
It was incredible. And the next day, we had to fly the airplane back from Bombay to London. And the flight engineer said to me, Nick, this will be my last ever flight. Just that was what he said. I'll never fly again. We'll just do this one flight back to London. And he was right. He never flew again. They literally grounded all of the classics, all the jumbos. And this poor chap never flew again until his career. So, yeah, I do miss the old flight engineers. And they...
Do you think it got any less safe then when the engineers went?
No, safety wasn't compromised. But I think the ability, a three-man team worked very, very well, because when there were just two of you, especially if it's a really long flight and you're tired, having that third pair of eyes was really useful. And we did on long flights, very, very long flights, have 3 pilots, sometimes 4. But flight engineers, they just had that ability to almost take themselves away from whatever problem there is and give an overall view. I think to a pilot sitting in front of the instruments, you can get what they call tunnel vision. You look at just your... So the engineers had that ability to not have the tunnel vision, to have a look at everything that was going on. So they were great. And then they also knew where the best bars were, the cheapest beer. I'm sure you remember that.
That's their function then.
Yes, they had days. No, it was a sad day.
Yes, I do remember the flight engineers were often the social secretary as well. They'd be the ones that say, right, we're going for this place for a meal.
Yeah. They were great. Because, of course, you flew 747 as well with Virgin. I've still have a letter from Virgin offering me a job from 1986. Yeah. Do you remember a pilot called Jim Smiley?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a lovely guy. He was the chief pilot.
Right.
So, yeah.
Fun. You weren't tempted across then?
I was tempted, very tempted. It just seemed that it was probably, I think I'd have fitted in far more at Virgin than I did at BA. Because I did have a few captains who wouldn't speak to me, literally would not speak to me. They would speak via the flight engineer, because for them, co-pilots were low, I was a self-employed. So the captain would say to the flight engineer, tell the co-pilot to raise the gear, or tell the co-pilot. I really had that.
This must have been early human factors days, because that's just
way before that. Yeah. And that's why I went down to Gatwick. I went to see the chief pilot, British Airways, and said, I'm leaving. I don't want to be in an airline that treats me like this. Well, you can do that if you want to, but you could try going down to Gatwick, where they only have a few jumbos. And I thought, yeah, for that to go. So I moved down to Gatwick in 1988. And I stayed there until they closed the base in 2001.
Yeah.
So very different. But yeah, that was a different time, different generation.
What was it like flying the 400?
Lovely.
You had that extra long bubble on top, you know?
Yeah, it was lovely. I mean, we were called the ensuite fleet because on the flight deck, we had a double bedroom and our own toilet.
Yeah.
So we were the ensuite fleet. It was just lovely. It was the perfect way to fly.
Yeah.
Coming back from Cape Town, get airborne from, you'll fly it for 4 hours and go to the bunks and have a sleep for 6 hours, then get up and fly it for 2 hours and land. So yeah, it was great. And the Classic didn't have the flight deck bumps. It had them just outside the flight deck, so it was slightly less private. So it was a great airplane. There'll never be another one like it.
No, I like that jumbos. I like the 400. So what about when they started putting the locked doors on, after 9/11? What was that like for you as a pilot?
It was very sad. Obviously, with your fear of flying program, I used to love having people up on the flight. I think, if people can see what's going on, a lot of it is the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
And if they came up on the flight deck and they could see how relaxed we were, and how the systems work, what was good, what wasn't. And they used to say, "Is it safe?" I said, "Well, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't." And I always said, "Well, there is actually a VIP on board tonight, so we have to be extra safe." "Who's that?" "Me," I said. "I'm the VIP, so I always make sure I get somewhere safely." But it's easy to make light of people's terrifying, but it's as you very well know, it's a real thing. It's you see people who are terrified, absolutely terrified, and I have just great admiration that they overcome that to get on the airplane. So we never take it for granted, never take it light. And often I've gone back to speak to a passenger. One of my last flights back from Lagos, we had this poor lady who, once we started the engine, she was terrified. She was literally wanted to get off. So I just need to stop the pushback. And I just went back and sat with her and chatted to her. I said, "Look, if you want to get off, that's fine, but let's think about another way of doing it." Well, I sat with her for 10 minutes, just making sure that she was happy. Because if she wanted to get off, there's no way I was going to take her into the air. But she was fine. I went and saw her during the flight. So it's a real issue. It's something that needs addressing. I think also the company's doing it very well. Because it's flying. It's if you think about it, we take 400 people into right up at 40,000 feet. There's very little air. It's minus 52 degrees. It's a very alien environment up there.
Yes.
We never forget the fact that we're taking all these people into a potential, very unfriendly environment. So we've got to make sure that we do it properly, which we do. But we also got to make sure that we understand that people are likely nervous as well.
Yes.
But I think a little nervousness, flying should never be taken for granted. It should never be, you should never be flippant. When you get an airplane, as you know very well, we have to share around responsibility. Passengers are responsible for their own safety. You see these videos of what happened at Las Vegas with our 777, or you see the Japan Airlines, people leaving the aircraft. Japan Airlines is wonderful. Passengers got off, they left everything behind and walked away. You see these videos on YouTube of people grabbing their luggage, trying to get off and burning the airplane. So it's safety is everybody's responsibility, from the pilots to the cabin crew. Cabin crew are vitally important. Look what happened to Japan Airlines. The cabin crew saved everybody on that airplane. Not the pilots, the cabin crew saved them. And the passengers themselves, they have to take responsibility for their own safety. They can't, when they get on the airplane, they've got to make sure they haven't had too much to drink, because that can be problems, I'm sure you know. I just wouldn't take anybody who was intoxicated. It's illegal anyway. You don't want somebody like that on the airplane. So everybody on that airplane, we're all going up into this alien environment. So we're all responsible for our own safety. I think when people realize that and understand that, then flying just becomes safer and more fun.
Why do you think it is so safe?
It's so safe because
that's a tiny question for a big answer, but hopefully
it is
satisfying.
It's a culture, isn't it? Everybody in aviation. Let me put it like this: if I go into a lawyer's office and I ask the lawyer a question, there's a pretty good chance he's going to lie to me at some point. If I go onto a flight deck and ask my co-pilot a question, he will tell me the truth every single time. He's not going to lie to me. If I ask the cabin crew a question, they're going to tell me the truth. If I ask an engineer, he's going to tell me the truth. It's the only profession that I can think of that everybody is there for one reason, for safety, to get that airplane from A to B. And nobody will lie to you. I've never had anybody that I know has lied to me. So the safety culture was embedded in the people who love aviation. You go into aviation, it's not the best paying job in the world. It's unsociable. I didn't see my children grow up. I'd go away on trip and they'd been proud. I'll come back and they were in secondary school. So, how did that happen? So we sacrifice a lot because we love aviation, because we love what we do. And I think everybody in it puts 100% themselves every time into making every flight safe.
Yeah. Now, I talk about safety culture a bit, and maybe you could elaborate a little bit from, as someone who's the most experienced 747 pilot.
Yeah,
it's great, isn't it? What a thing. What's that? How's that play out on the day to day? How do they achieve that?
How did they? Also, how did I get to where I did? Or
no, just like this thing. Like no one's going to lie to you. We've all got safety, but how do they sort of get that, and how do they maintain that? You've been flying for a while.
Yes, 50 years. I know that. Well, we're the most regulated, obviously, profession in the world. Every 6 months, we have to go and spend 8 hours in the simulator, plus another 4 hours being questioned. So we literally, every 6 months, you could be unemployed. So you have to maintain very, very high standard. And you can't hide. You cannot, on a simulator, you cannot hide. You could be a lawyer, a doctor, and a doctor, once they get signed off, that's it. They can go out and do all they want for the rest of their career. But a pilot, every 6 months, he has to go in there and prove that he knows what he's doing, that he's done his homework, he's kept up with all the latest amendments, the latest sort of technology. So there's nowhere to hide in flying. So when you turn up for your job, you've got another professional looking at you, and sometimes another 2 or 3 if you've got a 4-man crew. People aren't looking for mistakes, but they're certainly expecting a level of competency. And none of us are perfect. Everyone makes a mistake, and that's the thing is not to compound that mistake. You've made a mistake. As John Ty very eloquently has previously seen, if you make a mistake, you put your hand to it. I think I might got this wrong. And that's what makes it such the open culture. The fact that we've all talked to each other, the fact that we have the same training. And that's what really makes it just such a safe profession. But as I said, we're taking 400 people up into a very alien environment. So you see every day that there's somewhere around the world something goes wrong. So a fear of flight, perhaps a respect of flying, I think, is a better term than fear. We should respect what we do. It's rather than the fear of it, we should respect pilots and passengers.
Yeah, I think so. I often say to people, you prepare yourself. You're going to do a long journey. If you're going to do a long journey in a coach, you'd prepare yourself. You'd think about it. You plan it, and you'd take responsibility for your journey, wouldn't you? And it's the same with it. We don't hand that over. We just got a lot of professionals around you, but you still down to you as well to not take it for granted.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure you did when you were flying. So, and I do now when I'm a passenger. When I look around, I sit down like all the people do. You see them. It must be very frustrating for you. We're trying to get the safety brief and people's reading newspapers. I see people now. It's they sit there and they don't pay attention to the safety brief. You take their shoes off. Never take your shoes off until you're airborne, because you may be getting out of the boiling airplane. If you have if you have an incident takeoff, you could be getting. And why would you take your shoes off? Wait for another 20 minutes. Make sure you know where the exits are. Make sure that you listen to everything the cabin crew say, and just have a good look around you. Be aware of where you are and what you're doing. And it's very easy not to do that. And I think that's that safety culture comes from everyone. As I mentioned before, passengers as well as crew. I still do. Whenever I go and do that, I had a pretty look round. I think to myself, well, what if? And I'm sure you do that when you're flying. Every flight, you say, okay, if this goes wrong, what do I do? Where are the people?
Yeah.
I still do that. But I'm a very relaxed. The pilots these days are so good. And I'm very relaxed flying, but I certainly make sure that in case of an incident, I'm not going to be the one blocking people trying to get out.
Yeah, I was going to ask you actually what you like as a passenger. Are you okay?
I love it much better. I love it. Yeah, I've done enough. I've done 32,000 hours over the 50 years. It's time for somebody else to sit there and look at all the weather. No, I love writing my books. I really do enjoy that.
Well, tell us a bit more about those then, because then people, I cut you off.
The first one is it's called The Self-Improvement Book One, and it takes my career from literally my first flight in 1974 right up until I decided to leave executive flying. And so I went out to America and I flew around America. I turned up in San Francisco, and I'd saved up enough money to pay for a year's flying. I spent 4 years working literally 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. And in those days, there were no mobile phones. I didn't have a credit card. So I literally had my money in a big envelope. And I turned up I missed my flight out to San Francisco. So my friend got lost on the way to the airport. When I got to San Francisco, I was meant to be picked up and taken to this accommodation. I booked into this flying school. There was no one there to meet me because I was now 5 hours late. So I thought I had to go and get a taxi. But all I had was English pounds. So I went to change some money into dollars. And then I went to ring a taxi phone. And then I rang the phone. I went outside and I waited for the cab, and then suddenly realized I'd left every single penny I had in the world in the telephone box. So there was this brown envelope with, I think, about 15,000, 20,000 pounds. And I left it, and I just, so I ran back and I just thought, that's it. I'm just going to have to try and borrow some money to get a flight home. And there it was. It was still there. It was one of those, it wasn't a box. It was one of those grey hoods stuck on the wall. The phone's on the wall and you had this break. It was every penny I'd earned for 4 years was still there.
Oh my goodness. That is terrifying.
But it's just destroyed my life. Then the next day I turned up and the flyer school I booked onto was the most ramshackle, awful, dreadful place. It was sounded actually like a comedy. I looked at their airplanes. I wouldn't taxi one, never mind fly one. I thought, God. I refused. I said, no, I'm not going to stay here. And they got very, because I had my money in my hand. I wasn't going to hand it over. And I'd spoken to some engineers, asking where the school was. And luckily, they followed me. They went in. And otherwise, I think I'd have been mugged. These people were very unpleasant. And they said, well, go and try that flying school down the road with Hayden. And I went to this flying school and I walked in. And it was like an executive jet place. It was just amazing. So I literally, the place I'd come from was a caravan. And I walk into this sparkling palace. And I said, yeah, I've come through that to fly. And they said, well, just down the corridor. So I went down the corridor. I walked into their flying cabin. And I looked now. I thought, I can't do this. This is crazy. I'm wasting their time. There was this beautiful woman. She was absolutely, what the heck did he do with it? It was a receptionist and explained my predicament. And she goes, I'll see if I can find somebody for you. So off she went. And I eventually was called into the chief pilot's office and explained what had happened. And of course, I had to have a visa. So I said, well, the company that I was going to fly with, they've got my visa. And she said, I'll sort that out. Anyway, he came back to me. He sorted it all out for me. And I thought, well, I can't afford it. So he gave me a price. I thought, that's not too bad. I could just about do that. But it wasn't including accommodation. And I was going to be there for at least 6 months, 9 months. And accommodation course is very expensive. Yeah. And I thought, I can't, what a shame. And I was about to leave. This lovely receptionist, she said, how did it go? I said, really well, but I can't do it. She said, oh, why not? I said, well, it doesn't include accommodation. She said, oh, well, I've got a spare room if you're interested. And I said, pardon? She said, well, I've got a house out about half an hour from here. There's a spare room. This friend of mine, we share the house, but the woman, I think that's very kind. But there was no way I could afford that. She said, well, how much have you got as a ballpark figure? And I told her, she said, that's exactly what we're looking for. And so and I met her, Jenny, and she said, and I moved Jen with her that day. She said to me, how are you going to get that? I said, well, any transport. She said, here's my car keys. She threw me the car keys. She said, put your bags in my car. And it was a red convertible. It was a Ford Mustang, 1966. So from being in this caravan, I was driving her that night in a red convertible. it's.
If it was a film, you go, oh,
Yeah.
that's ridiculous.
I know that's ridiculous. That could never happen, could it? That could never happen. But yeah, Jen, that was it. And I spent 9 months living in Jenny's beautiful house. I just love it. So yeah, I had a good time there. So yeah, just my career didn't see go to anybody else's script.
So that's the subject of your first book, by the sound of it. So,
That's the first one. That's the self-improver. The second one is called Still Improving. And that takes my career from joining British Airways, flying the jumbo, all of the fun things I did. I seem to get myself into predicaments, not necessarily flying predicaments, but if it was going to happen to anybody, it was going to happen to me. And I didn't mind, actually. I found some of it quite Lockerbie. The night that Lockerbie happened, the next morning I was taking my wife and young son, it was 8 months old, to Barbados. And of course, this airplane had crashed and nobody knew why it had crashed. And I thought, well, is it a good idea to take my wife and my young baby to Barbados the next day, which was the 22nd of December. I decided to anyway. But coming back that night, Christmas night, we were halfway across the Atlantic, very, very few passengers. And one of the cabin crew came up to the flight deck and said, yeah, a passenger was heavily pregnant and she thinks she might be going to labour. And they came to ask me because they knew I had my wife and son. And I said, no, don't worry. I've been there. It takes forever. Don't worry. We had nowhere to go. And so I went down there and I spoke to her. I said, don't worry. It's fine. I held up the hand. It'll be fine. She was only 7.5 months pregnant, so it's plenty of time to go. So we carried on. We just increased the speed of it to get to, we're going to Manchester. And then half an hour later, the stewardess comes up. She said, Nick, I think you better come down. I said, okay. So I got that seat, went down. And I said, look, there's absolute, oh my God. So I delivered the baby halfway across the Atlantic on Christmas night. So, and it could only happen. So the poor little Mike came out, but we eventually got it free. And we diverted into Shannon. And they called the baby Shannon, which I thought was interesting. So, yeah.
And that's just one of your stories. Goodness.
One of the stories. There's plenty more. So that was the second book. And that took me all the way up until COVID and final time. The third book, it's called Overtaken by a Butterfly. And again, wherever I go in the world, every day now I run 2 marathons a week, or the equivalent of every day. So I go out for 10 kilometers every day, and I did that throughout my whole flight. Wherever I went, I put shoes on and go running, and that took me into some. It shouldn't be a fear of flying; it should be a fear of going running than flying, because I would go running in Africa, South America. I've been chased by bandits, people trying to stab me, chased by my own mob in Lagos. I got attacked in a jungle in Zanzibar. So it's called Overtaken by a Butterfly because after I retired, I was running along our local woods, beautiful woods where we are. And I was running back towards my car. I was running as fast as I could. And this butterfly overtook me. It literally flew past my shoulder, a little butterfly, and I was running with top speed. I thought, damn, I've just been overtaken by a butterfly. And so it takes all the running stories. And when I was running, I hated running at school, detested it. And then got through it, managed to fall in love with running on those lines. And yeah, all of the funny, silly stories that happened running. So those are all 3 books.
Then you've got a 4th one out, you say?
Oh, you're working
on a
fiction.
Right.
The 4th one's a fiction. It's an aviation story. And again, it deals with the mental health stresses in pilots. So although it's a fictitious book, a lot of it's based on what has happened or what could happen. So probably not the book your fear of flying audience would want to. So that looks at all the other side of aviation, which does exist. I mean, mental health in pilots is a real problem, and it's getting more and more. So it's just looking at the mental health of pilots, and, how difficult it is these days. I think it probably always was, but I think now, especially we are concentrating on mental health. This book looks at it and how it affects especially during COVID,
Yeah.
and how that affects their flying. And it's called Road Pilot. The book is called Road Pilot, and there is a pilot now there who has got road. Basically, he's had a mental breakdown, so they're trying to get to it before he causes. I just started. So that's a fiction.
Okay. Well, we had Dr. Billy Hoffman on talking about pilot mental health a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, which is good because he's saying there's a lot of great stuff in place. We can always improve, and I think that's commercial aviation. It's always learn and always improving, isn't it? That's the thing.
Absolutely. The day you stop learning is the day you retire. But then I found out you still carry on learning because people tell you about it. And so
what about next for you then? So you're after 50 years of flying, are you still up there in one class?
No. I really have. I mean, I don't need to do any more flying. So I've done that. So writing is really interesting. I've never done that. So the fourth book we've finished this year. I've still got two of my other books and finished the audio book versions of. There's a television program which has been taken up by all the big TV channels. So I'm working on putting that together this year. Mm-hmm. It's a reality program, but it's a reality program about aviation with auditions. Yeah. So we're discussing the format. It's pretty much agreed, the format. So there'll be somebody quite famous, well, very famous actually, not me, but presenting the program. And it'll be a 10-week series, initial 10-week series. And it's basically teaching or trying to teach well-known celebrities about aviation and about flying. So it'll take the audience on the journey from a little two-seater airplane to flying the 747 Air Concorde. So it's that should be fun.
Oh, well, that would be really interesting. You'll have to let us know. So we'll look out for your book then. So we've got it's your name Nick Eades, and we've got
Nick Eades, and that's I don't know why, but my all they have to put in is Nick Eades, because if you Google my name, I don't know why, but somehow it seems to be there all over the place. So you don't have to worry about the name of the book. If you just type in my name, there's quite a lot of the internet about me. Or because I flew the 747 longer than anybody else, which is.
So what does that mean? So are you in the Guinness Book of Records as well?
Well, I suppose, I don't know.
Well, yeah. So you could be in there.
I mean, it really does. It means nothing, really. I mean, it's just a number of hours. I flew the airplane for a long time. It doesn't mean I'm better than anybody else. I used to watch some of these young co-pilots, and my jaw dropped just how good they are.
Mm-hmm.
So it just means that I've sat there. I've been very lazy in my career. I didn't bother doing other calls, and I just stayed with one airplane. That's the way I do it. It just gives.
It's just lazy because the amount you've got to do just to stay in check and uptight is massive, isn't it? So,
it is.
I get your drift. Some people switch pipes, don't they?
But... Yeah, no, I didn't want. I just if you find something that you really like, then I wasn't going to change for the sake of change. I did think about doing what John did in Flight Concord, and I did put an application in, but then Paris happened, so that never happened. I got the manuals, but then I didn't do it. I thought, well, I could, because as a captain, you had to commit your whole career to Concord. Because at the moment, you can change every 5 years. Then they brought it down to 10 years. Because as volatile as the airplane is, it just goes basically to walk around the Bay of Biscay or very. I love going all over the world. That's one of the things I love about the job. But then they brought the command down to 5 years. And I thought, I can do that for 5 years. But by that time, it was too late.
Yeah.
But no, I envy John Tye flying. That must have been. I mean, I did fly in it. I did go on the flight deck, just ship the captain, so you can have a look at see. I thought, this is fun.
Yeah.
But no, never transpired. So I'll leave that to far more.
I mean, you flew a big whopper of an aircraft. So one of our pilots, Captain Steve Ball, who works with us at Lovefly, he was on the 747-400, but finished up on the Dreamliner, and he loved flying that. He loved flying that aircraft. There's a
everyone, all my friends will smile. Yeah, great airplane, really nice. And apparently it's superb. What you want to watch, like the air conditioning system's great. Yeah, it's a superb. So, I just think of the old jumbo.
Yes. Okay, so thank you. That's been really interesting, and I didn't know what to expect. The stories that you've got there just gives us a bit of a taste of like, oh, you're obviously quite a character. You've got some amazing and interesting things have happened to you.
You know, when I wrote it, I scratched my head and thought, did that really happen? I asked my wife. She, yeah, no, it did. Yeah, you did deliver that baby. Yeah, you did do that. You just, yes, but it did. And it was just writing it down. Just crazy, silly things that I've done. And I'm not meaning to do them, but they just, life sort of seemed to follow me around and throw.
Well lived, Nick.
Yeah, and so being well lived. And I was enjoying stuff. I used to go to work with a smile on my face, and that was so important. There are a lot of very serious people out there, but just enjoy it. You can see. I could always tell my co-pilots. We used to fly with different people every time, although you got to know a very small amount. And when we lined up on the runway, and it was the co-pilot flying, and you see him put his hand on the floor, thrusting and pushing forward, I know that every time I did it, my smile got bigger and bigger. And if I looked around at the co-pilot, he had a big smile on his face. It's just going to be right. It's going to be good. Some people look terrified. They really do, especially people new on it. If the guy had a big smile on his face, and when you get those 4 big engines get to full power, the airplane races down the road. It really is.
Must be amazing. I can't imagine.
It's super. Every time, from my first flight to my last flight, I lost none of that magic of seeing.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm really doing this.
So Sandy, I used to find mind blown watching, thinking that you're coming in and that you get that huge aircraft. God knows how many feet you are away from those wheels, and you get that to just kiss the runway. How the hell do you do that?
Well, I never did that. No, the co-pilots did that. I just bounced it on the runway and hoped for things. But things like flying in the old Kai-Tak airport, going to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Well, we really did. We look out the window and you can see people watching television in the flats as we flew between the flats. Just great. Just so much fun. So, yeah, it's a boys' zone thing, or girls' zone. When you say boys' zone, it's the old magazine one. And some of our best pilots, of course, are just fantastic. Yeah. So you meet so many different people. And it's a great, well, isn't it? That's why we're still in it. That's why we're still doing what we do.
Yeah.
It takes a special breed of people, I think, in aviation. And going back to your question about safety, it is safe because everybody who does it is there for the fact they do love it. You're not stuck in a career that you're just trying to see yourself through to retirement day. You're there because you love it. It's your life. And it's anybody else's life. That's why we make it so safe, because we enjoy it so much.
I think that's a great place to end.
I just thought you would.
Yeah. Well, there's anyone listening. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
34 years flying that jumbos. 50 years flying.
50 years flying. Yeah, it's a long time.
Still got the most dangerous bits your flying career appear to be all the times you went running. So there you
go. That's my most dangerous thing. Yeah. I think the closest I came was Lagos, being chased by a mob, who weren't particularly friendly towards me. They obviously took great exception to me running around the streets in Lagos. So when I was running away from them, I thought to myself, this isn't going to end well.
Yeah. You might have done a PB that day then.
Well, I was saved by the security guards from the hotel, and unbeknownst to me, had followed me into this housing estate. If they hadn't been there, I wouldn't be here now. It was not good. But don't go outside and you don't see life, do you?
No.
Everything carries a certain risk. Otherwise, you just sit at home and read books about flying, which I tell you is a very good thing. I can recommend my actual.
So. Yes. Brilliant. Yeah. Nick Eades, that was fabulous. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate that. And,
I'll enjoy it. Really nice.
Yeah, let us know what happens if this the reality TV thing comes off. That'll be really
I'm certain I'll be in touch.
Thank you. All right, take care of yourself. Thanks again.
You too. Bye-bye now.
Cheers.